We will now open the Estacada City Council meeting to order. Please join me in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sandy, if I roll call, please.
Here.
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 Here. Here.
Here. Thank you very much for that. Before we get started tonight, I want to make a change in our agenda before we go forward. I'm pulling the Parks and Recreational Land Solution conversation off of the agenda until a time that me and the city manager can sit and go over this when we're talking about the agenda, because we haven't had a chance this week or last because of the ice and everything else that was going on. So that said, we will continue with the meeting tonight. We are at the first citizen and community group comment. I have three in front of me. First, I have Carolyn D. Kimball.
Hi, my name is Carolyn Kimball. I'm a small business owner here in town. I feel as if I have a unique thumb on the pulse of what happens in Estacada because I'm a content creator. I administer and monitor Facebook groups. And as a small business owner, I advertise on a lot of the Estacada Facebook pages. I see the divisive comments and commentary about housing issues, the wastewater treatment plant, city zoning, city staff versus city council issues, the splash pad, the speeding drivers, lack of 24-hour policing in town, among a host of other issues. But I also believe the people expressing their, expressing their opinions, having disagreements, and being able to vent online about these problems should be taken into consideration. People in this community have opinions, good or bad. Just because they don't bring them in front of the council or the city doesn't mean that those ideas, rants, and views aren't just as valid. I want to express my concern about a few of those. First, zoning. The last time I spoke, I mentioned that the zoning wasn't keeping up with the growth, that some zoning probably needed to be updated to meet the current demands of the permitting that was taking place for developments, specifically for the proposed apartments near the Red Fox. I seem to remember that there needed to be updated zoning that might make it more challenging for the permitting to be approved for that complex. It's not a popular project. One thing that I haven't heard anyone comment on is the height of these apartments. The conversation about the downtown zoning hasn't addressed that. None of the buildings in the downtown corridor are over 2 stories high. It might not be written in the zoning or the codes, but that precedent is clearly established. I think this needs to be considered for all downtown corridor zoning and permits, especially these apartments. And knowing that the wastewater treatment plant doesn't really meet a long-term vision for our community, less than 15 years, geez, even the school district is looking up to 40 years into the future. Why can't the city put a moratorium on building permits? All of the city literature says that we are close to capacity, and knowing that the current issue is flow and not capacity, I would like to know what capacity we are now at. I know that it's government math, charts, and engineering that tries to explain what's going on. I would like to see someone in very clear layman's English explain and answer the questions that so many people seem to have that go unanswered. I'm concerned for online behavior of people who are supposed to be representing city committees. I'm sure the code of conduct has specific punishment when problems are presented. I will not be naming names because as a small business owner, I can't afford the online vitriol that would be retribution for whistleblowing. But be sure that there are many and varied examples that I have witnessed with my own 2 eyes sprinkled throughout the Estacada Facebook pages. It's reprehensible that this is allowed to happen.
All right. Thank you for your comment tonight. Yay, Tim May.
Thank you for the time. My name's Tim Mann. I'm down on the Lakeshore neighborhood. I've been watching what's going on with the apartments that they were talking about putting in, and it has really very little to do with that. This is a safety issue for us down on Lake Shore. Since I've lived there, I've had a lot of problems with planning, and one point we went without a way to get out of the Lakeshore neighborhood for almost 2 weeks. A lot of the traffic had to come up my street, which has now got a sign at the end of it, so that's not an option anymore. With the apartments being put in, that's going to put a whole lot of stress on us down there if we do have another emergency situation, such as the fire. The only way to really get out of there in that situation is going to be beach. That's not going to work for everybody because you only get 3 cars through that light at a time. With 300 cars down there, you can imagine what the problem that's going to be there. The other streets that you can get out on are Acacia and Elm. Elm is getting harder and harder to get out onto as it is with just the traffic here, not in an emergency situation. And knowing all the problems that happened down here during the fire, I spent probably between my wife and I well in excess of 300 hours volunteering at the relief center. So I know what happened here when things went bad. The city council and city management need to get together and come up with a real plan for how we're going to deal with an emergency the next time one occurs. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, Natalie Ramus.
Hello, everyone. My name is Natalie Rames. I'm a resident of Estacada. I'm here to address the proposal that redundantly suggests using the Campanella Estates green space to build a splash pad. This entire proposal has already been thoroughly addressed by the Parks and Recreation Commission, City Council, and most importantly, the community. The initial proposal was presented to the City Council on 10/24/22 for the addition of an ADA park for children and to, quote, work on the potential for a splash pad at Wade Creek Park, end quote. The motion passed with 5 voting yes and 2 voting no. During the 7/10/23 City Council meeting, City Manager Melanie Wagner submitted a purchase order for splash pad components for the amount of $38,580. The purchase order detailed that the splash pad would be constructed in Wade Creek Park and was anticipated for opening for the 2024 summer season. By 11/29/23, Melanie Wagner provided a comment stating that, quote, the splash pad component should be delivered soon. We're finding out that it is not feasible to build a splash pad in Wade Creek Park. The water line is insufficient, end quote. Per Melanie Wagner, the only 2 options for drainage of the splash pad is either into the sewer line or into the storm line if the water was dechlorinated first. Additionally, contractors are not willing to construct it at that location due to potential damages to the park. Regardless of the previous information, she stated that our green space in Campanella is still a viable option. Why was this research not done prior to ordering $38,000 worth of splash pad parts? Why are we adding to the city's water load when residents are being asked to conserve water during the summer months, especially considering that those are the peak months when the splash pad would attract usage? Additionally, the sewage plant is not going to be fixed until 2026. Why are we adding to the sewage system's workload when it is already underperforming? The Parks and Rec mission statement claims to, quote, enhance the quality of life of all residents of Estacada, end quote. How can you be enhancing the life of all residents when you are knowingly disregarding the quality of life of some of your community members by trying to place a parking lot and a splash pad directly in their backyards? While I understand that the development of Campanella is new, the roots of the individuals that live within our community run deep. My grandfather purchased 80 acres of land here in 1946, and it is still within our family today. In section 3B4 in the memorandum, you attempt to establish the Estacadian identity. The personality of individuals from Estacada is one that does not give up, does not back down, and will persevere. So I can assure you that we will continue to show up regardless of how much opposition this requires. Since 2022, our community has been asking you to not place a splash pad directly in our neighbors' backyards. These requests are being ignored, directly violating what your community members are asking for. However, I can tell you with full conviction, as adamantly as you try to refuse this splash pad, our community will be adamant in its refusal. I'm sorry. As far as you try to pursue the splash pad, our community will be adamant in its refusal.
All right.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yay, Tom McEnany. I got it, huh?
Not an easy game. This time I picked up the microphone. How about that? So Tom McEnany, longtime resident here in Estacada, almost 50 years. Seen a lot of things come and go, a lot of big changes, and not looking forward to the big changes that are coming. I want to say thank you to Jonathan for last time calling out the things that I have said in the recent past about safety and security in this community, which is all of our responsibility. Not only the Clackamas County Sheriff's Department, but all of our community. So that said, I am really tired of hearing about fentanyl poisonings, which in our community doesn't seem to be rampant yet. And I stress yet, but in just the last week, 5 fentanyl poisonings that I know of, not in our community, but that doesn't mean it's not coming here. That is something that we all have to think about with the invasion coming across our southern border, bringing these drugs in here. We all have to be extremely aware of what's going on. And now with this young lady missing and nobody knowing where she's at, things that are happening in this town I haven't seen before. I know there's been a drug problem in this town for quite some time, but with the thing, people getting shot and all of this, this is something I can't stress enough that this body needs to stress to the community that they have their backs and they are taking this very seriously and with all the resilience that needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, John Miller.
Hi, I'm John Miller. I'm a resident of Campanile Estates, and I just have a little bit to say about the Parks and Rec thing also. So I grew up in Boring, and it's a really small town. I'm 33. I lived in Sandy for a while. We moved out here to raise my daughter, and we bought a house out here. We didn't think everything was going to change. I feel like it's all pushing this way, pushing this way, pushing this way. The biggest thing for us is that we moved out here to not have a splash pad in our backyard, to be able to take our daughter across the street to the river. We already have a huge parking issue. I'm on the corner of Broadway and Forest Park, and people are constantly already parking illegally in front of the stop signs every day. So I see that as a fire hazard. I'm also a journeyman plumber and work downtown on big commercial buildings. I see it as a huge hazard being next to I don't know if it's an actual fish pathway, but the creek. I think you can't be technically within 100 or 200 feet of it. So that's a huge thing for cross-contamination with any type of chlorine into the water system. And then also, it's only going to be used 3 to 4 months out of the year. So I feel like that's just a huge waste of taxpayer money when it could be used towards something else, like the school system or the sewers or any of that kind of thing. Also, we walk our daughter in that park pretty much every day. And within the last 2 weeks, we've found a needle and then a needle cap in the park. So our biggest concern is just being here for our community and saying, we moved out here to get what I had when I was a kid and be closer to friends, family, go up in the woods, hang out, camp, fish. I don't think we need another park to make that happen.
Thank you. Yeah, I got one here that says Pat, and that's it. Okay,
Wants to be anonymous.
that's it.
Could you use the microphone? Thank you.
So I can hear you.
I live in Estacada like everybody here. We have gone through this so many times. You guys have promised, backed off, promised, and worked with us. We worked with you so hard. And now we're getting this. I would really like to see you all polled to find out exactly how you voted. Because they do it in the courts after every jury duty, everything. I've been on them a lot. We have a right to know which one of you are turning us down because you may not even live in the area. We live in this area. We work in this area. We have kids in this area, grandkids in this area. All of us know each other. We know their kids. They know their dogs. We know everybody. You don't even take care of the skating, roller skating or whatever that thing is over there. There's garbage everywhere. We go around and pick up garbage all the time. Do you even know how many kids are in this area playing? Do you know what's coming in? We only have one police officer. We don't even have a police station. And you're trying to shove another park down our face when the gas station says we got property here, put it here. Why don't you try looking at other places instead of taking our area where we paid, and I know I did, $20,000 more to live on a greenway. We've got people who have Alzheimer's, old folks that moved out here for protection to have peace and quiet, and you still want to put a park in it. Honestly, I don't think you guys really even give about our area. Y'all just sit here and give out rules. Thank you.
Can I, please? Pat, can I get some clarification? You've been in here a few times. We appreciate it. You've spoken on the past, but I think you're catching some of us off guard here about the splash pad. Nothing's been decided on the splash pad at all. I think the last we knew is we needed to find alternative places.
It's not in the agenda.
Last thing you heard was about the splash pad.
I think what was placed in the agenda was the old parks master plan. which
It was updated. It was completely updated. We got the agenda for this meeting. It was updated. And I assume that you guys received the same packet as well.
There is a Parks and Recreational Land Solutions preliminary work plan discussion we were supposed to discuss tonight. Parks and Rec Commission and Planning Commission had requested, because when developments come in and are building new neighborhoods, there's no requirement for them to put a park in that neighborhood. And so, our code just suggests it would be nice if they had a park or some green space, which obviously you highly value your green space. And so we don't have that in the code. And the Parks and Rec and the Planning Commission, and it has been brought to you before as well, just as kind of to see if you were interested in this, we'd like to update the code to be more strict on developments needing to put parks in, when they're building their homes and platting their lots. And so that's what the discussion was going to be about tonight. Pieces of the Parks Master Plan from 2018 were included in that, and Taylor had highlighted some things that would reinforce that we value parks. We want parks to be in our new neighborhoods, and so the splash pad was part of that 2018 Parks Master Plan. I did say that. I did say that. But excuse me.
Wait, we can't interrupt her.
I did say that. But what is in here is pieces of the Parks Master Plan. There was already a recommendation to program Campanella Park with some features, and splash pad was one of them. But that was not on the discussion tonight at all. It was.
No. Did you feel, are you here next on here? I'm going to give you the opportunity to speak.
Okay, so I just want you to know, we weren't discussing splash pad tonight. Read the agenda. It's not on the agenda.
Okay. We're not going to go back and forth here, people. Stop.
It's not on the agenda.
All right, Julie, you're next up to the mic.
In July of 2023, the city council met with Parks and Recreation, where they submitted an outline of the purchase order for the splash pad for Wade Creek. Parts were ordered and received for Wade Creek. In November of 2023, Parks and Recreation submitted a list of the cost of issues with the splash pad at Wade Creek. The first step of undermining the council that had already voted. The members that were there that night questioned her, saying Campanilla had already been said no to. She then said it is still up for discussion at Campanilla. Also, the city councilman said, what about the Shell gas station? They offered the spot. And also the water waste treatment plant had offered their spot. Again, it was Campanilla is still up for discussion. The cost issues at Wade Creek would be the same as they are in Campanilla. So I'm not sure why we're even having a discussion about that. And just so that everyone here knows, to be on Parks and Recreation, you don't actually have to be a citizen of Estacada, just live within the school district. So are they really looking out for us or themselves? Democracy is a government in which power and civil responsibilities are executed by the adult citizens directly or through their freely elected representatives. Democracy rests upon the principles of the majority rules and individual rights. We live in a time where democracy is continually being questioned. What you, Parks and Recreation, is doing is teaching our young youth that the community voice and the citizen and the council's voice don't matter, and you can go about it in different ways. A youth, the city council is their first induction to government. And if we start that now, what are we teaching our youth today? What Parks and Recreation is doing is disgusting. You're not listening to your community or your city council that have already voted. You feel entitled to your own personal wants and needs, and you're lowering yourself to undermining the city government process. You've been sneaky and dirty about it. And honestly, I don't know how you sleep at night with that. We elected a city council to speak for the town's citizens, and Park Recreation is taking that voice away. The citizens have spoken, city council has voted. There is no reason for Campanilla to be in this discussion. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have anybody online? You wanna?
Yeah, so for point of clarification, just, I'm trying to get a pulse here I'm trying to make sure I'm not the only one that's lost. I was under the understanding that the last place we left off with the splash pad was just that Wade Park was no longer feasible, period, the end. There was not location discussed further than that. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so just for the community's outtake I live in Campanella, I understand your concern, I care. But just for your outtake, where this discussion had a pin put in it is that Wade Creek is just not going to work. There has not been a discussion of location to go further. As that comes, you guys know where I live. You see me walk every day. Please feel free to stop me and talk to me. That's what I'm here for.
All right, no talk back. Okay, is there anybody online, Sadie? No, okay. We're moving on. We thank you for your comments tonight. I know this is heated, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be vicious, but we can't talk back and forth. We can't get out of control. We talked about government being better. It starts here. So, yeah. So, thank you for your comments, and we will definitely take it to heart. So we appreciate you. Thank you. Consent agenda. You've all had a chance to read over the consent agenda. Do I have any questions or comments to that? Or would somebody like to make a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, so I have a first. Do I have a second?
A second.
First and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. We're at department and committee reports. Have any of you had your committees meet that you can report on? I see any hands, so I can start at one end of the other.
We might have a couple of committees here to report. Some of them put in written reports into the packet,
Okay.
and there might be a couple here to report, but I'm not sure who.
All right, who do we have?
Vincent.
Yeah, all right. And that's on which one?
Parks and Rec.
Oh, okay. All right. You might want to sit back down. No, just
All good. Yeah. So for Parks and Rec, I made it tonight to talk about the SDCs and how we're recommending that the council take up and enshrine park SDCs into the city law so that new developers who come in make sure they're paying their fair share. Other hot topics for the Parks and Rec, we'll be doing a goal setting meeting soon to plan out our goals for the new year. We likely will take up revisiting the park master plan, since a majority of the projects on there are old and have been completed, which is a testament to the Parks and Rec department of the city. They actually go and get projects done. So we would like to update it and get new projects on the list. And if anyone wants to come out and have their opinions heard about the park master plan and ideas for it, and we have a few in the works. People want pickleball courts, people want a few different things. So if you want other items in the parks and new amenities for the parks, then but you can have your opinions heard by the committee, because we all live in the city. We're all part of the community. I live right up the street and I'm the current chair of the committee. So we always take opinions seriously, and yeah, I encourage people to come out. So, but yeah, so the trick or trot's been good. That was our last event. We should have some new events coming up soon. The new website, Estacada, is out, and people can look at that, and they can look at things to do within the parks now and track their scores and stuff like that. So yeah, that's pretty much what we've been up to.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have any other committees here? All right, traffic safety.
All right, good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. All right, my name is Jim Moriarty, Chair of the Traffic Public Safety. Good evening, Chief. Good to see you. Just going back a few months here, just want to bring up everything that the community has brought to us. We appreciate everything that we do. We call them field trips. First field trip we did was back in October. We went up and had some concerns at Southeast Lawrence Road, Southeast Coupland, had some safety issues up there with the turning and increased travel. And due to Council Metcalf, we've come up with some good ideas, and we're currently working on this issue in regards to, I think we're getting on the radar for Clackamas County. So they're going to be helping us out on that. I don't think we're number one on the list, but we're working on it. So working through that. Let's see, later in the month, we shared images of Estacada Lake and individuals living below the Red Fox Motel, Acacia Road, and the Cazadero under the 211 bridge. We shared our concerns about the trash, clothing, campfires, and structures being built in these areas, and also expressed our concerns for the safety of the water plant and the access to the facility. Chief Mendoza took notes at our meeting and had his deputies check out the area. Ant Farm did a cleanup project there, so it was a nice before and after. Definitely a good job. All right, moving on. Got the small pad here. All right, the city's implemented a recent city action request on the website. One that we had recently was between the intersection Northeast 6th Avenue, between Northeast Cemetery and Northeast Pierce. We're in the process of collecting speed data, and we're having a discussion about a possible stop sign and or crosswalk near the Shafford intersection. And again, we love input from everyone in the community on this respect, because we're concerned about drivers in the morning and also walkers to school. Currently, we have 5 active speed studies working right now. Cazadero Court and 10th, Campanella to 10th, by River Mill Elementary, Northeast Cemetery to Northeast Pierce area, Southeast Oakview Lane, and Northeast Pierce. We just recently completed a Campanella speed study. We discussed it and the data on Hillway beginning near Broadway, and a second location further up the street on Hillway. We recommended a 25-mile-an-hour painted on the street there and a crosswalk at Broadway and Hillway. Yeah, let's see, sorry. Okay, the city put out a street light audit on our Facebook page, and that was conducted, and there was a great amount of feedback from the community, 6 different locations that needed more light. Those were, let's see, Southwest Cedar and second by Hitchin Post Pizza, Southwest Deuce Road between Eagle Creek and Northeast Sweetwater Road, Northwest Clackamas Way, 4th Avenue and Zobrist to 2nd Avenue, the junior high and Main, and basically from the schools up to Cemetery. All right. Okay, the biggest concern that we've had recently, or I'd say 2023, is speeding in town. We get phone calls, texts, the citizen action requests. It's a big problem in Estacada. Whether it's people going to school or just look at social media, it's all over the place. And we're working with Chief Mendoza and his deputies, and we're just trying to get a handle on the traffic requests, and we'll get you all that information. We promise hopefully the updates are helping. I know the emails are long, but I apologize for that. Okay, another field trip. We went up to Northeast Cascadia Ridge and Northeast Cemetery, Northeast Cascadia Ridge and Northeast Rockwell, and that 4th Avenue pinch point up between Southeast Oakview and Ginseng. We had photos and videos taken, and we documented at our meetings. We put stakes, wooden stakes in the ground with the yellow tape to show where we would recommend due to the bad weather here, praying for rain. Thank goodness we got it. But seeing people slide down 4th Avenue, I haven't been here but 7-8 years, come down, cars slide right under people's driveways. And we just don't want that happening, especially over in Cascadia Ridge where that grade is so large. So those are our recommendations for that. Our meetings tomorrow night, and accompanying Chief Mendoza, we'll have Deputy Sarah McClurg will be attending our meeting to discuss Neighborhood Watch and Estacada, how to get that up and going. Does anyone have any questions?
Oh, thank you. Oh, Mike, go ahead.
Counselor.
Just wanted to say I really appreciate what your guys, all the committees do and the time that's spent, but I know you missed one thing when you guys did the mock-up for the Main Street project. I thought that was very helpful. The amount of time that you guys spend outside of just your committee meetings. I see you guys all over town. I seen you coming out of my neighborhood at the Cascadia Ridge and Cemetery, and I saw several vehicles that went over that, not this storm, but in the previous one. And so I'm just really appreciate the amount of time that you guys spend outside of your committee meetings, just doing stuff for the community. I know it's a really high paid position, similar to the city council. And so we appreciate you guys. Thank you very much.
I got a point. And just to make sure that we're on the same page, there is a work order submitted on the Lawrence and Copeland thing. Where, like I said, Paul said that we're not, he's got some other projects that are a little bit ahead of us, but there's a work order created. It's in the system. So hopefully you'll have results on that soon. Thank you.
Okay, is that all the committees I have?
I think that's all the committees, yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
you all had a chance to read the other committee reports. Okay, great. Next on the list, I have a police report by Chief Mendoza. You here?
Right here.
Oh, there you
Thank
are.
you.
See, you got
I
to
snuck
right here
in.
in front of me.
All right. Oh, well, thanks for having me. I have an expanded discussion for tomorrow's committee, but we'll do a quick overview here on a PowerPoint presentation. I just want to make sure that everybody knows that this information, the slide that you see here is a public dashboard that is available on the Clackamas County Sheriff's website. If you just go to the main website, scroll down, it says dashboards, and then actually right in the middle, you'll see the city of Estacada. So you can go there. There's a lot of useful information. You can pretty much click on about anything or hover over any of this, and it'll give you additional information. So feel free to visit that if there's something you want to look at specifically. So this is our call activity for the city of Estacada for 2023. This was are essentially calls for service. The large number at the top, 2,755. That is relatively flat as compared to last year. There was 17 more calls for service than last year, so relatively flat. In 2021, there were 2,671, just for comparison. So staying fairly steady for that one. On the where you see low priority, just below that says Estacada and CCSO and other. The light green, there's Estacada. That when you hover over that, it tells you that our deputies in Estacada handled 38.8% of the calls in the city of Estacada. So while the deputies were on duty, they handled those calls, but there's another, just over 60% that were handled by sheriff's office deputies that were not on duty in Estacada. Along the bottom is the heat map and the month-to-month call activities. So you'll see that our above average months for this year were December, January, March. And then on the heat map, you'll see that generally, as you'd expect, the lower call volume is between 2 a.m. and 7 a.m. We'll go to the next slide. And this is specifically looking at high priority calls in the city of Estacada at 368. 31.7% were handled by Estacada deputies, so slightly lower than the previous number. Domestic violence was the highest of those high priority calls, with the second highest being alarms at 12.5%. Average above average months was interesting, the summer months, which was different from the previous call load, May, July, August, September. And then the lower volume still 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. Put an asterisk there just to denote that if you look at the heat map, there are several areas outside of that where there were no high priority calls, and then obviously high priority calls still during those early morning hours. And we'll look at the next slide. Thank you. And this is reported crime. So it looks a little bit different than the calls for service. So we get called by the community to something, and then we established that there was actually a crime committed and we're taking a report. This was 153 for 2023. 22.8% of those were theft, and which tied with criminal mischief. May and December were the highest months. Summer months, a little bit above average there. There were an increase in person crimes that was at 37, which is up from 28 from the previous year. Harassment was up to 18 from 7. Assaults were down. But if we look at this, take a look at the next slide. You'll see that this is reported crimes in 2022. There was 149 property crimes. So what I wanted to point out, if we go back for a second, there was a significant drop in property crimes from 2022 to 2023, which I have a theory on potential reasons for that. And one direct link was a problem location that we've discussed before, that our neighborhood livability program worked out in the county. It was in the Eagle Creek area, and that location was essentially a high volume location where we had a lot of criminal activity related to a lot of property crimes. Several people went to jail. The house changed hands, was sold, and essentially shut down. So I believe there was a direct link to the amount of property crimes in the city of Estacada to that location. And we were luckily saw our property crimes go down. We'll move forward to the next slide. Stolen vehicles were down substantially. Burglaries were down substantially. And again, like I said, those were, I believe, related to that one problem location and problem individuals. We'll go to the next slide. And I'm ending with, this is a slide that we have at the sheriff's office, and it looks at our current hiring totals. Along the left column explains kind of where they're at in the process, backgrounds as they've interviewed, and we're checking their background and whether we've given them a conditional offer, or if they're in FTEP, which is they're in recruit training. So we have quite a few in training, 7 at the academy. The totals in the right column are would describe those as significant also. I mean, there's we can see more than 80 in the last 4 years that we've hired, and our FTEs with the sheriff's office for patrol deputies is around 160. So in the last 4 years, we've hired half of our personnel. Some of them are laterals, some of them are new, but quite a bit of them new. So there's a lot of new people. So I just put in the notes on the side that we're constantly recruiting and hiring. The deputies did secure new contracts, and which will give us some additional ability to recruit new people, which are advantages to having a lot of new people, but also bring some challenges. And I think that we'll be able to fulfill the city of Estacada's desire to increase the amount of patrol officers in the city, with the fact that we're continuing to hire, but training also takes time. And I am open to any questions if you have any.
Okay. Questions for Mendoza?
Yes,
Given
sir.
statistics on how much of that is transient related, as far as
That would take a little bit of digging into. I could get back to you on that. It would take a little bit of digging into, though.
yeah, I'm just curious on that. I think that some of the issues that were stated, like with needles in the park and stuff like that, is coming from outside sources. So I'd be curious just
Sure.
to know.
Sure.
Okay. Any other question?
You notice any correlation between the, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Did you notice any correlation between the increase in local staffing and like an impact on heat zones during that same time period? Is that something you guys look at?
Not really. Not really. I think that heat zone is reflective, I think, kind of across the county. I could look a little bit closer at it, but the way that our staffing is situated is to maximize our personnel during the busy times. So,
Gotcha.
so yeah, I think it's pretty much in line. I did notice a correlation to so we had some challenges with staffing this last year, and I didn't have this on this particular PowerPoint, but our traffic stops had also gone up significantly last year towards the end of the year, and that's when we became full staff as well, which is what you would expect. So the proactive work increased.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Sure.
I'm probably going to put you on the spot, maybe just a little bit.
Sure.
And maybe you cannot answer this question if the case is open or if it's ongoing investigation. But is there any more information, or could you shed any more light on that shooting that happened on 2/11 a couple months
Sure.
back?
Yeah. Thanks for asking. I spoke with our detective sergeant today specifically about that. It is still an open and active investigation. And quote him, by no means is this a cold case. They are still actively following leads and working to an arrest for those crimes.
Okay.
Okay. Any more questions? All right. Thank you, Chief, as always.
Thank you.
All right. We are now at the city manager's report.
I have, I wanted to respond to a couple of questions that came up at the last council meeting. And then I have Dawn DeRozier here with me to talk about our response to our wonderful icy weather and below freezing temperature weather that we've had. So, but first of all, just there's a couple questions that got asked at the last council meeting on January 8th. One of those questions was a question discussion topic of what would it take to get a moratorium on building? And I don't have a hard and fast answer for you yet on that, but regarding wastewater, we are we're going to be talking with our city engineer, potentially with somebody from DEQ, somebody that can come and talk to the council about, what a moratorium actually looks like, what it means, what it does it take to get there? What happens, what cities have to go through before that would happen. And because it is a little more, it's not just a cut and dry, number, I could say this is where the cutoff is. So we're looking at a best way to get more information on that and somebody here who could answer questions for you. And then regarding water, as Steve Donovan had mentioned earlier, we're in the process of updating the water master plan, and that will give us a clearer picture of the number of lots that are able to be annexed prior to needing substantial upgrades to our water plant. Because we do evaluate when property is annexed. If that property, it was fully developed, which is typically the intention when somebody annexes, then what would, can we provide those services? So that's why they look at that during annexation. And right now we're using about 35% of our water plant capacity in the winter. And then in the summer, we're at 85% on our peak flow days, maybe a little higher than that because our plant wasn't running at its optimum last summer. But based on what it should be able to produce, it's about 85% in the summer. So water conservation efforts in the summer could decrease that amount significantly. But once the water master plan is complete, we'll have more concrete information about what our capacity is and what we need to do and how we need to implement water conservation measures or however that might go. So more to come on all of that. I just wanted to address that for just a minute. And then there was a question about why aren't previous versions of the city charter available online? And so I just wanted to share that best practices says only keep your current version online. It's like the municipal code. And once we update the code, the old version is no longer available online to prevent someone from being confused about which is the correct version of the code. But somebody could go back and view the ordinance that was passed by the city council that changed the code so they could see the progression there if they wanted to do that. And in the same way, someone could review a previous ballot measure or council minutes concerning the charter amendment. So we do track all of that and we keep that in the permanent records and the minutes and such. But it's just not something that we keep posted because it could potentially cause confusion. The process for changing the charter, which Peter spoke to a little bit last time, is that the council would appoint a committee to review the charter. And this does not happen very often at all. But they appoint a committee, the committee does their review and makes a recommendation to the council. And then the council determines whether or not to go forward with that recommendation. And if they do want to, then it goes to a vote of the people. So it's quite a big process. There's a lot of documentation of that. But what you'll find online is the current version of the charter. So just wanted to share that. And then we have Dawn here to share. We put together a little bit of a PowerPoint for you, and I'll just let you go, Dawn, unless you want me to say anything. But I just want to say, first of all, I know that it's easy to look at what somebody else is doing and think that I would do it differently. But I want to say our guys worked very hard it was a holiday weekend for one thing. So much for holiday weekend. And there was lots of overtime hours that were worked over the weekend. They worked very hard and it was below freezing the whole time. And I just really appreciate their willingness and their hard work. And I'll let Dawn share a bit.
Hello. The storm hit on January 12th. We came in around, I think it was like 4:30. We started driving. We started out Cascadia 6, which would be Kern Creek. And we're kind of waiting for the temps to drop. The way we do it, because it was raining prior to the temperatures dropping, that you have to hit it that nice sweet temperature, like 31 to 30 degrees. And then we can start putting the de-icer down. And so we prioritize all of our hills. And so it's not just, we do hit our main streets, our broadways with de-icer. We pre-treated all the hills in town, so all the neighborhoods, Campanella's, Faraday, Cemetery, Edge Hill, Foothills, every steep neighborhood in town got de-icer. And what used to take us 2 hours is now taking us 4.5 hours. So we've kind of had to upgrade this year, and we were kind of forced into that hand, which it was a good thing. Due to state budget cuts, we used to have an agreement that we would sweep the highway and they would supply us with de-icer. And they can no longer supply us with de-icer. So we kind of had to buy a tank, get 5,000 gallons, transfer tanks, and we got a new de-icer set up to where we're putting down the right amount per lane mile at higher speeds. And so we started putting it down that night, and then the temperatures dropped a lot lower than we kind of expected. And so we thought we might be able to cut a lot of it with the de-icer, but it kind of stuck around. And I don't know if you guys were driving around in it when we were putting it down. The places we hit, like the hills, they were drivable. It wasn't slick like the black. If you go to Oregon City, there was black ice and freezing rain. Everywhere we hit, the de-icer did its job to where it made it more of a powder. And I know we got a lot of complaints about not using our shiny new plow. We can only plow 4 inches of snow. And what was out there was 3/4 of an inch of ice. And so we tried to test it out to see if we could possibly do it, and it just skidded across the road. And so our whole goal is to keep the snow in the main thoroughfares through. And I felt like we did that this year. We're kind of not using as much sand. We used to use a lot of sand during our storms. And we found out that it does tremendous work to our street sweeper. And then it fills our entire storm system with all that nice sand. So if we can use the liquid de-icer, the magnesium chloride, to kind of break up that and not have to clean our storm systems out and then have our sweeper out for 2 weeks straight, it seems to cut down on the manpower and then the wear and tear on the vehicle. The sweeper, it's an expense. Any fix on that is in the tens of thousands. And it's something that we just try to use for dirt, sticks, and leaves. And while we were working and doing this, we de-iced every day during the storm. We had other problems happening. We had houses flooding in town, which is people not leaving faucets running, or they have exposed piping outside. Even if you have an exposed piping and leaving your faucets dripping in 13-degree weather, you still could freeze. And that's what was happening. And then we started having people's toilets not flushing and their bathtubs because their vents were freezing from the freezing rain. So it was just, we couldn't really help them with that. It was more of a self-education type thing to let them know that defrosting your vent will open your pipe up and then your toilets will flush. We ended up having a main break in that picture there inside Timber Park, and it's still there. We were able to isolate it. It was a feeder line off of the line that feeds all of our industrial campus. And so we were able to isolate it, but I have to have a monitor there because it has archaeological artifacts there. And so I have them scheduled tomorrow to come out while we fix the main break. And we're still, a lot of water was used during the storm, and a lot of it is all of the water leaks that we had, but also some of it is everybody was home. All the kids were home. Everybody was working from home. People took days off. And so there's just a major draw. So if we're going to kind of play it out for a couple of weeks and see if we still have that main water draw, and we're still looking for water leaks, but as of right now, majority of the leaks are fixed. It's just, we have the one tomorrow to fix. And hopefully we get that done and we should be good, because that feeds the dam and then the park station there, which is in their off time. So most of the roads we hit the main priority. So we'll hit Main Street Hill, Broadway Hill, and then we'll hit the turn towards the bank. And then we'll hit 4th Street Hill. 4th Street's our main one. There's a lot of people that take that every year. And there's wrecks that they nail that mailbox year after year. And then there's the cemetery from Cascadia on to Cemetery, where the Traffic and Safety Committee has been doing their studies. That's a major place where cars they go. We've almost taken a work truck over that before. So we put a lot of de-icer down. We put over 2,500 gallons of de-icer down. Usually that's 2 years we use 2,500 gallons. So that's the power of having our own de-icer. So a lot of the neighborhoods like lower Campanella's, there's the first phases are super flat. We don't hit that because we don't have the amount of de-icer we would need to hit all of the low neighborhoods in town. And that's the reason why the other half of Campanella's got hit. In that picture, you can see the slope. We're just trying to let people have safe exits to the main roads that we have hit with de-icer and hoping they can get from place to place. And then we send in we have 2 parks guys, we have a streets and storm guy, and then we have a water and sewer guy here. And they all do everything. They're a jack of all trades. And so everybody came out that Monday or Tuesday. And then throughout the storm, we were throwing salt down on bus stops. The main entrance, people still pay their water bill with a check, not over the internet. And they will go out in an ice storm and pay their bills or drop their books off. So just keeping those places open. And that's something we have to stress, that the sidewalks in town, there are sidewalks in front of City Hall and our library, but the sidewalks in front of your house, they're your responsibility to clear. It's not the city's. And we saw some of those complaints. And everybody we talked to that I've talked to over the phone, their complaints, they were viable, but I was able to talk to them and talk through them and kind of express the reasons why we did what we did. Yeah, any questions?
Yeah, I got 2 because I got one backing up to Melanie, but for in the future, is there a way we could look at for like those flat spaces in Campanella that you said, like you don't have the de-icer? Is there any reason we can't look at addressing that with sand? It's a less amount. I mean, I understand your wear and tear, but
So next year I am planning, I know salt's nobody likes the word salt. But salt, I can cut through, I could have cut through that with salt. And that's a lot of the states, and you look on Oregon City's website, all the other cities, they use a salt sand mix. And the grittiness of the sand and the wetness of the salt, they kind of merge and they create it to where you're getting traction and it's also breaking through the ice. And so I'm looking into getting a salt spreader and getting salt to where I can hit my hills. And then something we've learned during this is we need exits out of every area. So say we did hit the upper side of Campanella's, we do need to have that main stretch going through the center of Campanella's, the low stretch. We need to put de-icer down that just to keep the ins and outs of neighborhoods open. And so all of our other new neighborhoods are on hills, so they're already getting that, but Campanella's is like the only new one that was built in a flatland.
then my other question was, the mayor brought it up, I think twice now, but do we have any numbers on as far as the sewer, what the original thing was built to? Do we have the original capacity? I think we keep circling back to that question, like what was the original number? That's what everybody's just been asking. Do you have any updates on that?
That is what, that is why I need to have the engineer here, because I was trying to decipher the book and it's Greek to me.
Okay.
So, yeah, I was gonna give you some numbers and I thought I'd done the math right. And then I realized I probably hadn't. So it turned out that we're just gonna get some experts to come in here and talk to you about that. But yeah, good question. And thank you for following up on that.
I just have one question. My sign got sheared off during that ice storm. Which goes down my street, so you can't tell where.
Oh, okay,
Dude,
yeah,
who takes care of that?
that's
Is that-
us.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I
Yeah.
just thought I'd put that in
Yeah.
there. I mean, I got no sign to get to my house.
Yeah, anybody has street sign complaints, they can send it to there's a submission on the city website.
All
And
right.
that's the big thing that we miss is like street toppers. The traffic and safety committee went out last year and they marked a bunch. I mean, that's just something that's overlooked.
Yeah.
And anybody sees a street top or anything like that, just send a submission to online. And then it comes to me and then I can order the signs.
Okay, great.
We only have six guys in public works that work the streets, that do water pipes, sewer pipes, streets, storm, parks, all that is 6 guys. So the more eyes and ears you guys do and submitting it online, the better. It helps us out with our job.
Yeah,
Thank
you did good. You're good, Mike.
Just want to say you guys did a great job. I'm up in Cascadia Ridge on a couple large hills coming out of there, coming down to Cemetery. And up until I think it was Wednesday was the day that the freezing rain came in after it had already been down and it was just a complete slick. But up until that point, we were able to get around the entire time,
Yeah,
getting in and out of the neighborhood. And I just appreciate you guys working long hours and the job you
Yes.
guys did a good
the
job.
guys appreciate that. The guys, anytime you guys see a public works guy, it helps to tell them that they're doing a good job. They never hear that. They always hear the bad. So anytime you guys see one, just tell them they're doing a good job. That was another complaint we got, was people saw us de-icing during the freezing rain. And that was our way of, we call it, chemical de-ice or chemical plowing. And, it's to help break up that freezing rain as it's falling to where it's not gonna create that. It's not gonna be a sheet of ice. I mean, Clackamas is still a sheet of ice, Gresham. So I think our response to that storm, the way we did it, we handled it well. I just feel like some of those straight stretches into the neighborhoods could have gotten hit. And that's where I think we kind of dropped the ball on that, but the hills, I think we did great. So.
One more quick question, going back to what you were saying about the water usage in the summer, that 85% of capacity, is that not taking into consideration any of the additional load coming from the new subdivisions? Is that actual usage where
That's
like
like
some
actual-
capacity numbers are factored in when we bring annex a property in? So there's properties that are annexed in that a maximum usage calculation was run through. So we got 2,000 homes or whatever the number is in 13 subdivisions that are not built out yet. That's gonna obviously put us over in the summer months then?
Yes.
Okay.
That's gonna put us over. We're gonna have, and when we get our new water master plan and the conservation plan, it will give us some steps to implement, like if we hit a certain amount of water usage, then we can implement some water conservation measures, like we'll stop watering the parks other than the major use areas. Or we will stop city operations, we won't wash the city trucks unless we're going to a place they recycle water. And then the next thing is it's going to impact the community, and the HOAs won't be able to require you to water your lawn because we'll only allow it like on certain days. So they can't expect you to water it every single day. And so we'll have like different steps in that I'm not just having to randomly say, okay, everybody stop using water. It'll give us some good, I'm planning that it will have some good steps to manage that, because we use, in the summertime, there's like 500,000 gallons going through the sewer plant. And but we're using, the water we're using was 1.5 million gallons. And on our peak days, like 1.7 million gallons. So that's obviously all outdoor use, which people need to use. We need to use water. It's part of our quality of life, but we don't want to waste it. And we want to use it wisely. So if we keep running how we are, then the new houses to be built will push us over, and we will have to conserve more. And that's why Steve was saying we're going to have the master plan will have capital improvements that we're going to have to make to the plant to get us up to being able to produce the full 2.6 million MGD instead of just 2. So.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, any other questions? Oh, Don, we thank you muchly. You're the man.
Thanks, Don.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
All right. Now, is there somebody online?
Some toothbrushes.
What's that?
Who's that?
Close the public here, or close the city council meeting, and I will open. Yeah, go for it. I'm right in between hammer. Yeah. No, not a problem.
Could you use the microphone? You might have to turn it back on.
I just wanted to bring a slightly different perspective than a lot of what you heard tonight, The reason I'm on the Parks and Rec committee and stuff is because I believe Parks and Rec are good for the community, right? The recreation events we have, they do nothing but bring community together. The art in the park, the run through Campanella. I've met more of my neighbors as in everyone who lives in the city through those events than any other time during the city. And, parks are good for quality of life. You know, they protect certain land from development instead of being turned into more housing, right? So, and I know like the amenities within a park are always contentious and stuff like that. But I just want to make sure you have the perspective that, you know, everyone who comes out to the parks and the events we have, you know, they really enjoy the park spaces. And I don't see any park as like my park. They're all of our parks, you know, they're for everybody. The reason I came to Estacada before I lived here was Milo MacGyver Park, because it attracts so many tourism, it attracts people, you know, it attracts families. People love coming and checking out new parks. That's what they like to do. Even like that small park that's directly in people's backyards up the hill, I forget the name of it, with a basketball court. That's like one of the only places you can play basketball in the city that's not on school property. You know, if I'm jogging, I have to jog all the way from up above Cemetery to Wade Creek to go and jog around a park. So I just think having more park space and that is good for the community. And I just want you to have that perspective as well, because I know you hear a lot of negative, and you don't really hear the positive. But I think parks very much are good for communities and bring people together.
Great. Okay, I will now open the public hearing. I will now close the city council meeting and open the public hearing on exemption from the competitive bidding requirement and use on the alternative contracting method for the Estacada wastewater treatment plant. So I will hand that over to you.
That's a mouthful. We started to discuss this when Kennedy Jenks came in here in November about using the CMGC process as a way to shorten our timeline. And this is the first step in moving forward with this process. And then Sean is here to go over the finding of fact to move us forward with that process.
Thanks, Elena. So the CMGC process is construction manager, general contractor. It's an alternative form of project delivery.
Excuse me, can we have it quiet in the back of the room, please?
So the traditional method is design, bid, build. So you take a project to 100% design, you advertise it for public bid, and then you select a low bidder. That's typically how it goes for public contracts. In recent times, they have started to allow, now Oregon state statute allows alternative project delivery. And so this finding of fact is sort of the first step in saying, yeah, we would like to deliver the project using an alternative delivery. It does a couple things for the city. It allows this first and foremost to meet the schedule. Since it's a DQ mandated schedule at this point, the only way we could meet that timeline is basically by going alternative delivery. And then, you know, second of all, it allows us to pick a more qualified contractor with the right experience to construct a treatment plant. If we put it out for public bid, you know, the chances are you select the low bidder and maybe they don't check all the boxes in terms of experience. You know, we want somebody who's done treatment plants, who has that right experience, who can get the job done efficiently. And then it also, it adds value engineering to the construction process at the same time. A lot of times engineers think in terms of capacity and I have to make this thing as big as possible and robust as possible. And the contractor brings a different perspective where they're saying, well, what if you use this different method to arrive at the same result? And so there's a lot of value in that in terms of making the project more streamlined and maintaining budget. So for those reasons, we would recommend going with alternative delivery CMGC process.
Good. That's it. Come on. Usually it's real long ones, Paul.
I do have a question. We're going to put this, if we move ahead with this, we put this out for bid. And then as I understand, you've got there's a pool of qualified CMGC firms then that could bid on this. What are we at risk of not having a firm that doesn't have capacity to start for a year or two within that pool. I guess that's my concern because it seems like we'll be going with a smaller pool.
Everybody's busy, but at the same time, this is a more attractive RFP for certain contractors than a traditional open bid or, hard bid. It's certain firms look for these contracts, and I think that'll generate enough competition. So I think given the dollar value of the contract and the schedule and the fact that you would use alternative delivery would attract the right bidders.
And I will say we've already had a couple of firms reach out.
Okay, great.
Mhm.
Another question, the City of Estacada Local Contract Review Board.
That is the city council.
Okay,
Yes.
that's us.
That is you.
Great, thank you.
So the last time Steve Donovan was here, the sky is falling, and he even mentioned it again today, that there's no way, in his opinion, that we're going to have this done by 2028. I mean, you still really feel that we're going to be on pace to finish this by 2028, even with the sky is falling?
Even with the sky is falling. The CMGC process allows us to do a few things. So you select that general contractor, but it also allows them to put out smaller bid packages for long lead items. And then one of the big ones is going to be the MBR equipment. So early in design, we're going to select, what we think is the best MBR equipment, and then put that out for public bid, essentially, and they'll manage that process. So I think it's certainly possible to hit that date. It's more likely with CMGC.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Anything to add before I go on? Oh, it's Peter.
So I've worked with Steve in a lot of different jurisdictions, and he does quality work, and he does it at a very good price compared to other people that are out there. I have never sat through a presentation where the sky wasn't falling. And I've yet to see the sky fall. So, and this is in, jurisdictions in Columbia County, jurisdictions in Clackamas County, jurisdictions in Clackamas County. There's some people that come up and are like, oh yeah, it's not a problem. And then there's a problem, and then people are very angry. And it's almost like a strategy of, it's like how your doctor says all the things that go wrong with like the medication, and then, hey, you're pleasantly surprised because none of those things happen. So I've used this in other jurisdictions. I've used this form of contracting. My experience is that it is more attractive because you're able to, firms that have a lot of experience know that that's going to be taken into account. We're looking at past performance and all those things that we just can't look at if we're doing a low cost bid. And the other trend is, there are people that maybe have not done a project that will bid one, because you always have your first project, and then you get just tons of change orders. So that's why sometimes with really complex projects, this is a complex one, but other ones with topography or whatever, it really makes sense to be able to look at their past performance. Did they bring projects online in the timeline that was promised? Did they deliver them at the price? Those are all factors that can be looked at using this alternative form of contracting. So it doesn't guarantee a better outcome, but my experience has often been, I think that it allows value engineering throughout the process versus going off of an engineer's plans and following them to the letter, even if the contractor says, hey, we did something else in Dundee and it worked great. So.
Okay, Mike.
Say we find 3 firms that have the experience level that we are comfortable with, and we think they can all deliver the project. Where does the competition? I haven't been part of a CMGC project, so is the competition, the competitive on the pricing, percentage of markup over time and materials? Where's the competition at between the firms in price?
Yeah, you could certainly put that in there as one of the RFP criteria. you know, what's your markup or standard markup on materials? What's your standard markup on subs? We'll certainly have that in the RFP.
Okay.
But as Peter was alluding to, you can create an experience requirement. How many projects similar to this one of this size have you delivered, you know, on time, on budget?
Develop like a scoring rubric to be able to rate the contractor. So it's not necessarily a competition on cost. It's competition on experience level.
Yeah, you can make it both. And then
Both, okay.
Depending on how we weight the criteria, you know, that's
Generally, it's like 100 points or 200 points, and you would assign, we get to decide what, so maybe cost is one of the most important things. So maybe that's 50 points. Maybe experience is the second most. And so that's another 50, or it could be 10. So we'll work with them in order to figure out what are we looking for? What is supposed to support? I mean, cost is definitely going to be a factor. But I can't tell you exactly what that rubric would look like, but then it's clear and objective standards. And so maybe someone's done 20 of these and the other one's only done 2, but maybe the other one comes in at a lower cost and has a history of delivering on their costs. So that's how a less experienced company that's still experienced could get it.
I was gonna comment too, the subs they'll bid out, like if for the electrical work, the subcontractors will bid for that part of the job, right?
right.
And so we'll get, there's competition on price for the subcontractors through the project. That's not how we choose necessarily the CMGC, but that will factor in as we go along through the project.
And they're gonna have a compensation for overseeing the project as well as a markup on the subcontractors.
We could set it up that way. Like what's your
What's the standard practice
standard,
for 'em?
yeah.
What's typically that you see?
I think it is typical to ask for what their standard rates are on materials, and I haven't seen that in RFP, but as we're developing it, we can look at doing that.
My only concern on doing it with this setup as opposed to sending out the bid would be that if they're making a percentage off of, say, for instance, labor, well, and there's no control on the labor cost, they just increase the labor cost, which increases their markup. So if they want to make more money on a project, you just pay your guys more because they're paying the cost of the labor. And then in turn, you make more money on profit.
Mhm.
So if we could get, I would like to see like a list of their standard prices for things for different scopes of work. Just we had some sort of baseline. So if we see a bill come in that's crazy, marked up a lot over that standard amount, that we can ask questions about it. That's all.
And as we move through design with the selected contractor, when it gets to say 90%, they're going to issue a guaranteed maximum price.
Okay.
And so that needs to align with what the city's budget expectations are. And so that's another way of kind of controlling costs as we move through the process.
Yeah.
Even after we get through selection.
Oh, great.
All questions answered. All right. Okay, now as we move forward, does any member of the audience wish to speak to this issue? I'm not seeing any hands, any forms in, nothing online, no. Okay, does staff have any additional comments to make?
No.
No, okay. At this time, I will close the public hearing and reopen the city council. And we will now put this up for a vote.
And the motion is, the recommended motion's on page 37.
Okay,
I've got it here.
all right.
I move to adopt the finding of fact as presented and authorize staff to move forward with the RFP process for a CMGC contractor.
Okay.
A second.
I have a first and second, and let's do roll call on this, if you don't mind.
Yes.
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 Yes. Thank you very much for that. Okay.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for your work on this.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, we are now at the citizen and community group comment. Is there any more forums or online or anything? No? Okay. Now we'll go to the mayor council reports and comments, and let me start off with Jonathan this time.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for coming. It's good to see more of you come and share what's on your heart, what you care about. It does mean something to us. We're sorry that we're caught off guard by stuff, just like you guys are sometimes, but we're doing our best to negotiate this, and we are here to listen. So sincerely, I just thank you guys for being here and continue to raise that standard of excellence. That's what's going to keep this community safe, and that's what's going to keep this community strong.
I want to thank everyone for coming. I wish everybody had the time to stay so that they could hear that we really appreciate their comments. Public comments are very important, and I promise that we take everything to heart when we make our decisions. I'd like to thank Public Works for this ice storm. That was amazing. I saw them out working in my backyard. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, Paul.
Yeah, I want to thank everyone else for coming out as well to this meeting, and then the one that we had earlier talking about the Lakeshore Apartments too. Great turnout for that. Great input from folks there. And thank you to that group, the Design Review Commission as well. They did a very good job debating that and talking that through too. So we look forward to seeing where that goes. And then thank you to all of our commissions and committees as well too. Appreciate the reports out tonight. You guys do a great job, very appreciated. And I live up the road from Councilor Metcalf there, or McElroy, I'm sorry, and I could get up and down Cascadia Ridge every single day, and I appreciate that from the Public Works Department. Thank you.
Thank you guys for coming out. I never know what I'm going to say at closing. I never have anything planned. I just kind of see where the night goes. And I wish everybody else had remained in here, because I just want to really drive home the fact that first of all, we all live in Estacada. We have to live in Estacada in order to serve in city council. So that's first and foremost. I don't want there to be misinformation that we live outside of the city, because legally we cannot. We serve in this position because we care about the community and we care about people's opinions. And I don't know, I don't have any ulterior motives other than I love this community. I moved out of Portland, and just like you guys, was just sick of the crime, the violence, and wanted peace and quiet and a nice place to raise my family. I think everybody up here is in the same position. I know some of you have been here for generations that are sitting up here. So, so we do care. We do hear what you have to say. And I think some of us were a little blindsided tonight, kind of wondering where this was coming from. But we definitely, those of us who were up here before remember the Campanella discussion. And I'm pretty certain that I am not in favor of that, or hadn't been. So anyway, just wanted to put that out there. Splash pad, I know, is going to be revisited. We haven't heard anything, like Councilor Metcalf had mentioned what the plans are for that. I know it just wasn't going to be a go because of engineering logistical purposes at Wade Creek. That was my last understanding. As far as where it's going to go, I have no idea. But I want you to know that we care about your guys' green space. We care about your privacy, your quiet. Trust me, that's like my husband's he works a crazy shift. He wants a nice, quiet neighborhood. I hear about it all the time, so I can appreciate it. And again, I never know what I'm going to say at the end of these meetings. I get emotional because I get a little frustrated, because I think people think we're up here, that we get paid or something, and we don't. We're up here because we love this community. We want to protect this community. We want to preserve it. And yeah, we all have different opinions and ideas, but I think right now with the council as it sits, we are pretty good at working together. And if we don't agree, we come on some sort of consensus. But I thank you again for coming. I wish everybody else had stayed. Not that what I have to say is gospel, but I wish you could have, heard the rest of what we have to say and say our piece as well, because we give you your 3 minutes, and well, now I think this is probably my 5, but anyway.
Mike?
Just want to thank everyone for coming out and appreciate everyone's comments, even the heated ones. Just want to encourage everyone. It's been a nice turnaround since when I first started on the council, and it hasn't been that long, just the turnout from the public, people coming and giving feedback. And I want to encourage everyone that the reason I wanted to get involved was there were some decisions that were coming up that I didn't agree with, some things that were coming into the town that I wanted to be a part of stopping. And so I went out and I did that. I just want to encourage everyone, every 2 years, you guys have an election. 3 of the city council positions and the mayor's position comes up for re-election every 2 years. This year's that year. If somebody wants to step up and get more involved, and if you ran against me and you won, more power to you. I hope that you have the right things in mind for our community like I do. I work here, I live here, my kids go to school here. I don't have to travel more than a couple minutes to get to work. So I spend 95% of my time in our community. I care about it. I care about all the people within it. So I would just encourage anyone that wants to be more involved to get involved in the election process. It's not a very high paying position. You get $0. You get a lot of grief. You get a lot of people think that you have some ulterior motive or that you're lining your pockets. I haven't gotten any of those checks yet. So, but I appreciate everyone coming out and look forward to a discussion on the splash pad. Appreciate everyone's feedback. It was my understanding the last time we discussed it that it wasn't going to work at Wade Creek. There was no decisions made, and there's no decisions that are going to be made without the city council approving where it's going, correct, Melanie? Yeah. So look forward to having that discussion, and I hope all the people that had a chance to come out can come back again. Have a good night.
Okay, great. Jerry?
Again, thanks everybody for being here. Thank you all. You all put in a great amount of work, and I really appreciate all of you. Thanks for everybody that showed up, that keeps showing up. It is appreciated. I don't have anything grand to say, but thank you. Actually, I do have one more thing to add. I want to put my appreciation out there for the folks that didn't leave their house, that stayed at home. I heard a lot less about accidents, this storm than I did the previous storm. So I just want to put my appreciation out there for the folks that didn't feel comfortable driving and they stayed home. That probably helped the city a lot. So thank you.
Yeah, it was good, Jerry. Thank you. Well, here to me now. Let's see what kind of inspirational conversation we can have now. Sometimes I'm on the naughty list and sometimes I'm on the nice list. So if you want to run for mayor, do it. No, it's a gratifying job, even when it's heated. Because when I look out there, I notice that everybody's in this room and they're all speaking about the thing that matters to them. And that's what we're all about. I think that's what we all got elected about. We wanted to make sure that we gave them a voice, and that's what we're doing. So sometimes we make the right decision, sometimes we make the wrong, but we're not infallible. And city staff is not infallible. So, I appreciate all of you, but let's try to give them a little compassion. They deserve it. So thank you, and we'll see you next time. This meeting is adjourned.